I can. I just get in trouble for it. Okay. So, if there's anyone up there, well, nobody's on just yet, so I don't have to send apologies just yet. We'll get there. All right. Let's pull it up here. Oh, wow, would you look at this? I can never, okay, so it's so funny because when we do the practice round at 4:30, which is always fun. Y'all need to get in on that. It's very loose. Let's put it that way. And okay, what's happening? So I can always pull it up on my Facebook on here. But when I get in here to do the actual Bible study, it never pulls up on mine, and I don't know why. So to pull it up, I've got to put it on the church. I got to pull up the church Facebook. But anyway, I'm up now. I'm up on mine. So I don't know why, but I'm not arguing. Not arguing. Okay. Well, sorry, we're a little bit late. Had a little bit of technical difficulty. It doesn't matter how many practice rounds we do. We've been doing practice rounds for 4 years. And still, when we come in here to do this, at this time, something's bound to go wrong every now and then. But anyway. Okay. Well, anybody know of any birthdays today? Anybody got any birthdays that you know of, personal or otherwise? Well, let me give you the insight. Let me tell you a few birthdays of the day. And then, actually, there's a lot more fun stuff that happened on this day. But let me give you 4 birthdays first. 1859, happy birthday to Arthur Conan Doyle. Who did he introduce us to?
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, that's right. Born in Edinburgh, Scotland. He died in 1930. Well, let's just stick with the, literature realm. 1936, on this date, M. Scott Peck. Do y'all know that name? Probably wouldn't know the name very well, but you would know what he wrote. He wrote The Road Less Traveled. So, remember, it comes to a fork in the road. Anyway, he was born in New York City, died in 2005. Infamously speaking, I don't just give you birthdays of people that I like or appreciate or respect. I give you other birthdays as well. But on this date in 1942, Ted Kaczynski was born. Do y'all remember the Unabomber? Mm-hmm. He was born on this date in 1942. He was born in Evergreen Park, Illinois. Can you imagine being a small town like that and your only claim to fame is the Unabomber came from you? That kind of, you want to hide your face in that one. But anyway, he died in 2023. And then, I don't know if you cover this kind of stuff. I do. Are you familiar with the name Novak Djokovic? No? He is probably, honestly, and I hate to say this because Roger Federer is my guy, but Novak Djokovic is probably the best player to ever play tennis. He's won 24 Grand Slams, more than anybody else. He was born in Belgrade, Serbia on this date in 1987. That was after I graduated high school. How terrible is that? But anyway. A few deaths on that's all the birthdays I got. Just got 4. A few.
That used to be Yugoslavia, right?
Sure. I'm not good with my maps and such, but anyway. Okay, a few deaths on this date. This date in 337, Constantine died. Constantine was the Roman emperor who made Christianity the official religion of the empire. So, and everybody before him had been persecuting Christians, but he made it the official religion of the Roman Empire. And he himself, on his deathbed, professed Christ. I don't know. There's long debate over whether or not it was real or not, but that's not for us to decide. We'll find out when we get to heaven. But anyway, he was only 47 when he died. 1802, on this date, Martha Washington died, the first lady. She was 70 when she died. And 1885, while we were in the area of literature, Victor Hugo died. What did he write? Anybody know? two things. I had no idea that the same person wrote both of these. I didn't put it together. He wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and he wrote Les Miserables. So, anyway, he was 83 when he died. He was from France. All right, a few things that I thought were interesting in this date, that took place on this date. In 334 BC, Alexander the Great defeated Darius III of Persia in the Battle of Granicus. That was the turning point of the world empire, going from the Persians to the Greeks, which, by the way, has bearing upon the Bible because Daniel saw that. Well, I guess Nebuchadnezzar saw it. Daniel interpreted that dream for him. So,
My alarm is going off, sorry.
on this date in 1570, the first atlas was published. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Anyway, it was published with 70 maps in Belgium. It was called the Theater of the World. So the first atlas on this date, 1570. What now?
Now it's obsolete.
Yeah. Doesn't mean anything now. You just pull it up on your phone, I guess. And it's all changed or whatever. In 1761, the first life insurance policy in North America was issued. So, whatever. In Philadelphia. Okay. All right, so there are going to be two of these. But I bring them up, not because they're unusual, but because they have a bearing upon our Bible study that we're going through. On this date in 1766, there was an earthquake in Istanbul that registered 7.1 on the Richter scale. It caused extensive damage, and it set in motion a significant tsunami. A tsunami. So we've talked about that in here. Earthquakes, tsunamis. We see it unfolding here in the judgments. So there's one example. We'll come to another one in just a few minutes. In 1803 on this date was the first United States public library opened in Connecticut. In 1819, the first steam-propelled vessel launched to cross the Atlantic. No, I'm sorry. Hold on. That is an incorrect statement the way that I said it. I'm trying to build this up, and I don't know how to do that. So let me just tell you. The USS Savannah left the Savannah port on this date in 1819 to become the first steam-propelled boat to cross the Atlantic. And it succeeded. So more claim to fame for the city of Savannah. Go team. Let's see. I'm not going to give you the date just yet. The only United States president to receive a patent was issued on this date. Anybody want to tell me who the president was? The only president to receive a U.S. patent.
Was it in modern times?
No. Probably not. I mean, U.S. president is kind of modern, going back to 1800,
I was
so.
thinking like 1900.
No, it wouldn't be the 1900s. It was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln got a patent in 1849 for some device that lifted a boat over shoals and obstacles. I have no idea what that device was. I just thought that the trivia was kind of interesting. In 1892, Dr. Washington Sheffield invents the toothpaste tube. So, anyway, 1892. So, by the way, do you squeeze it into the middle or on the end? On the end? Middle?
It depends.
My wife is the middle, and it drives me crazy. We have to have our own toothpaste tubes, so I got to have it on the end. So, and when it comes to the end, you got to scrape it along the edge, to get the last bit out. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that's right. Get it dry. In fact, you might as well just cut the thing open and yeah, there you go. On this date in 1947, the first U.S. ballistic missile was fired. Interesting. This is before my time, but some of you may appreciate this. In 1956, Bob Hope's show aired for the last time on NBC. So I never watched the Bob Hope show, but anyway. Okay, so here's the other one. In 1960, so I'm trying to give us a picture of how easily it is to see these things unfolding that we have been reading about, because it's happened before. So in this date in 1960, there was another tsunami that was generated by a 9.6 earthquake in Chile, if you will. Okay, I just say Chile because we're from the south, right? So that's what we call it. But the thing about it is it hit Hawaii, okay, from South America. The tsunami went all the way to Hawaii, and it in a particular range, it damaged every city that was on the coast. So that's a long way for a tsunami to travel. And in fact, I should have looked it up. I should have asked Siri, what is this distance? But so that we can see, man, when the Bible talks about there being an earthquake and then all these other things happening as a result of that, it happened. It's happened already. So of course we can see this happening. 1961, the first revolving restaurant opens. Can you tell me what city it was in? Even if you can't tell me the.
Seattle?
It was in Seattle. Yep.
Space Needle?
The Space Needle. Yep. So I've never been to that. I've never been to Seattle, but of course I've been to the top of the Westin Peachtree Plaza in Atlanta, and it's got the Sundial restaurant there. And used to when I was in college, it didn't cost anything to ride on that elevator going up on the outside. Now I don't know. It costs, if you still can do it. Last I heard, it cost like $15 to ride up that thing. That's ridiculous. I remember when it went to $1. I'm like, why do I got to pay to do this? But anyway, but I'm scared of heights, and so I was going with college friends. But man, I was like hugging the back, looking around like, oh, when is this going to get to the top? But anyway, it was cool to walk around the top of that thing. On this date in you know what? I did skip something that I thought was interesting. The Pact of Steel. Y'all familiar with that phrase? The Pact of Steel was between Mussolini and Hitler that actually established the Axis powers. That happened on this date in 1939, I believe it was. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but I thought it was interesting. 1973, two more things. 1973 is when Nixon confessed his role in the Watergate cover-up on this date. And then, speaking of last shows, in 1992, it was Johnny Carson's last day of the host of The Tonight Show. There you go. What else? I really liked Jay Leno. I enjoyed watching him.
I know Jimmy Fallon's
He's okay. He's just more silly than anything to me. But he's lively. I wish he'd do something different. I can give you his opening statements and stuff. Anyway, whatever. And how he responds to folks, but whatever. He's doing fine. But I did like Jay Leno. He was good. Okay. Revelation chapter 9. I know I've done this before, but I'm going to do this again. I'm going to go back and cover some stuff because I keep reading things. And in fact, okay, so the way I'm going to begin tonight, and depending on if I keep stammering over this and keep talking too much, it might be the only thing that we'll cover. But we've left off in Revelation chapter 9 and verse 7 with the appearance of these weird-looking locusts. But I want to look at what has already come and what is going to come, based upon stuff that I have read this week. That, again, modern day life, opening up our eyes to understand the scriptures of what is to come. So the first is a story that just came out. I can't remember if it was yesterday or today. I don't remember. I think it was just today. I think I just read this morning. And it really kind of hit me. It's kind of interesting. The story is more tension between the United States and Russia. I don't know if you've heard this yet or not. But Russia has launched a satellite into low Earth's orbit on the same trajectory as as the satellites of the United States government. And the fear is, and actually the statement out of Washington, they have declared that this Russian satellite has the capability of destroying the United States satellite. And so you can see there the tension that is involved in that. And my concern for us in here is not so much the tension, because we know that exists. There's tensions around surrounding the United States. Russia always has been, I guess always will be. We see certain things in here that possibly we'll see in the future is going to point to Russia. Russia might actually be mentioned, specifically referred to in the book of Revelation. And I'm not kidding, like I was last week in the steel teeth sand gnats that we have. No, my thing is when we're talking about the fire that is coming from heaven in chapter 8 and verse 10. Now, and we have talked about it also in the seal judgments, stuff raining from the sky. And it hit me all of a sudden. And what we've said is this is volcanic activity that is blowing up lava into the sky, which does happen. And that might be what we're talking about here. It's also possible, I'm just saying it's possible, it just kind of hit me as I was thinking about it, that some of the stuff that is coming from the sky, it could be because we have one of the branches of the military, or the official branches of the military now in the United States, is the Space Force. So that we are looking at, and we are moving toward, the more advanced nations are moving toward warfare from space. And so it's possible that some of the stuff that we're talking about that is coming from the sky is actually warfare going on between nations, and the debris is going to shower the earth from the outcome of that warfare. I don't know. I'm just saying it's possible. That's all. John is looking at this. The Apostle John is looking at this, and he just sees it. I mean, it's like, what on earth is that? He's never seen anything like that before. And so he's describing it as best he knows how. And so I'm just saying there are a couple of different ways that we could look at that, possibilities. We know that it's going to be true. We're just not totally sure exactly what it is he's explaining or describing, but it could be either one of those. So that's number one, okay? That makes sense?
When you think about people 100 years ago trying to even describe today.
Right. Or 150 years ago, how do they, this is 150, is that far enough to go back? We'll just say 200 years. To try to describe a plane going up in the sky. How do they figure that out? Hey, Tina, come on in. Good to see you. Yeah, satellites or whatever. TVs, phones, the cell phones that we have. I mean, how do you, they don't have anything to relate that to. They're just seeing something and it's like, so yeah, easy to just get that. The other thing is something that we may be a little bit more aware of. We're certainly aware of portions of this, and that is what is going on in Israel. And we know that Hamas attacked Israel back in October. Is that when it was? Yes, sir. And so since then, there's been an assault on the Gaza Strip, and there's a struggle with how can we attain peace in the midst of all that, peace in the Middle East and all that. And so countries they're clawing for ideas, doing whatever they can. So today there was a development that is, depending on what your viewpoint is, it is troublesome. And that is that I didn't make copies, so forgive me. This is my memory, which is always scary. Norway and Ireland and Spain. All three of them have officially recognized a Palestinian state. Now, different people look at that different ways. You can say, well, there should be a Palestinian state. My answer would be that the entire region is a Palestinian state other than a small little section known as Israel. Whatever. We can argue about that if we want to. Palestinian, not Palestinian, doesn't matter. But here's what you've got. You've got nations that are now, and I wouldn't necessarily say, because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I don't just like jump to conclusions. I think that there are a million different ways to look at, especially international events that are going on. But Israel is certainly looking at that act as betrayal and as a turning on Israel. To the point that Israel has now taken their prime ministers and they have taken them out of those three countries in retaliation for, it's just political retaliation, but still. And so what is easy to see, and I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. I don't know. So I'm not trying to say that. All I'm saying is that the tensions are mounting, and in a very short amount of time, and by the way, something like two-thirds of the nations in the United Nations have also already officially recognized a Palestinian state. So you got three more that are making headlines and doing this at this point in time. So that something that is to come that we are going to look at in the future in our study. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because I will forget this later. I just know me. I will forget it. And I'll forget the details, and I'll be just talking about something in theory or whatever. So you can help me remember when we get to this point, the whole world is going to turn on Israel during the time of the tribulation. So, whatever the outcome of these three nations, and if that continues to snowball because there are other people, I mean, England and the United States have both called for a Palestinian state. They simply want it to come about as a negotiation between Israel and the Palestinians. So they simply haven't made it official yet, but they want to go in that direction. And so we don't know what the outcome of all that is going to be, but you can certainly see how the tensions will rise, and then all of a sudden everybody's going to say, well, look at how mean you're being in the Gaza Strip, and all these innocent people are dying and that kind of stuff. And again, you can feel however you want to about that. You can say that's awful, or you can say it's justified, whatever you want to say about it. I'm simply saying that it's easy to see how these tensions are rising and how the whole world will eventually turn on Israel. You can see it. I mean, it's happening right, like, watch the news. It's happening right now. So, does that make sense? So, I know I spent a lot of time talking about that stuff, but again, I just think, to me, it's just cool to see. I don't know if it remains to be seen if it's currently the Bible coming to life, or if it's simply giving us a glimpse of what it will be like when the Bible comes to life, because it's going to happen. Everything we're talking about is going to happen. It is history. Already it's history. It just happens to be history future rather than history past. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm just simply saying, man, you can see it. You can see it. So yeah, the pump is primed. Yes, ma'am.
So is that where the one world order is going to come in? Is that a part of the one world order? I never understood that. I mean.
Oh, wow. So for those of you who are at home, we have opened up a huge can of worms. And I'm trying to figure out just how many worms I'm going to bring out. But the question on the table is that where the one world order will come from and those kind of things. So the first thing we got to ask is what is the one world order? And according to the vision in Daniel chapter 2, the one world order is going to be a loose confederation of nations that will rule the world. Now, it's in the form of 10 toes. If you don't understand that, that's fine. if you remember Daniel chapter 2, that's kind of funny to me to talk about 10 toes. But anyway, it's going to be a loose confederation of nations that rule the world, and those nations that confederation will be ruled by the Antichrist. So that it will not be born out of the conflict with Israel. It will already be in place and help propel the conflict with Israel. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, because I don't want to get too far into it. Because it can be confusing, especially when you start bringing in different Bible passages and those kind of things. It is going to happen. I'm going to do the best that I can to explain it, but there have been we've already in this study we've already been through a few things that I've really botched in my explanation of and had to go do it again. So I'm hoping I can get it right the first time. So I don't want to get too far into it now since I'm not ready to. But that's what we see. That's what we know is going to happen. So
I just, after you were talking about what you were talking about, I said,
yeah.
that's the one world order. Because I hear my brother, he talks about it a lot, and I know that they said that in the future
Mm-hmm.
it's going to come to pass.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time when we get to Daniel chapter 2, which we've done before. We've looked at it before. But I'm going to do it again like we never have, simply because it now will make application to what we are seeing unfold in the book of Revelation. So that'll be fun, because it tells the history of the world. Daniel chapter 2 does. The entire history of the world. Well, prophetic history of the world in Daniel chapter 2. And something that you missed before you were able to get here, Tina, and some of y'all who are watching online, I know that we've got more than we did when we started, but when I was talking about things that happened on this date, you had the transfer of world power from the Persians to the Greeks on this date in 335 BC, something like that, 339 BC, 330 something BC. And that was foretold in Daniel chapter 2. So, very cool. It just blows me away. So, anyway, it's cool to me. If it ain't cool to y'all, then y'all have problems. That's all I can tell you. So. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions at all?
So we in Daniel 9, from what was passed, he says, so what we read at verse, what, 10?
We're in Revelation.
Revelation 9.
And I think you said 6, didn't you? We're in the, where are we at?
Where are we right now?
Yes,
We haven't
We-
really got started.
oh,
we hadn't even started tonight's Bible study yet, and we were 30 minutes in. But anyway, Miss Patsy has just put me in my place. No, I'm just kidding. Patsy has never put me in my place ever. She's always an encouragement to me. But so no, everything I've talked about is preliminary. So now we have another hour to go. I'm just kidding. We're going to be out of here in 15 minutes. So. No, for tonight, we are looking at Revelation chapter 9 and verse 7. I have just read a couple of articles today that had direct implication to our study of the book of Revelation. So I brought them up. And I will do that every single time because I like it. Love it, love it. Okay. So the only thing we're going to cover tonight, which is fine because I really did not want to get to the sixth trumpet anyway, not yet. There's just a lot there and we will need the whole time. But I do want to talk about what on earth are these locusts? They sound crazy. Revelation chapter 9, verse 7. Here's what they look like. Now, notice the recurring word like. And that points to what we talked about before. He's seeing something that he doesn't, he can only explain it in terms of what he knows in ancient days, in AD 95. That's the only thing he's got to go on. And so he's doing the best that he can explain with the references that he has. And these descriptions help us understand the nature of the beings. So we've already discussed what the beings are as we looked at the first part of chapter 9. Again, all those studies last week and the week before, I think you'll have to go to get that. These are demons that have now been released to torture people on the earth. And so he's talking about what they're going to do. They're going to inflict torment for 5 months. He said that twice. And now he's going to talk about what they look like in verse 7. The appearance of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads appeared to be crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like the hair of women, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sounds of chariots and many horses rushing to battle. They have tails like scorpions, and these are not the little bitty ones like we have in Georgia. These are the ones who kill. Well, they can kill. They have the power to kill, but they're not going to here, at least for these 5 months. And stings, and their tails, and in their tails is their power to hurt men for 5 months. What is it talking about? So, each one of these is telling us something about the nature of these demons, and I'm going to do the best that I can to, at least what makes sense to me, what it seems to be pointing to in my mind, I'll tell you. First of all, in Joel chapter 2, verses 4 and 5, we have a similar description of locusts there. Okay? And so we can kind of fuse these two passages together. Revelation chapter 9, Joel chapter 2, verses 4 and 5, and we see a few things. First of all, it talks about them being like horses prepared for battle. So they were warlike, they were powerful, they were eager to go and inflict as much pain as possible, because these demons are ones that have been in a prison hell for centuries, and they've gotten to watch all their buddies do what they do what demons do to people. These are more evil than they, fighting to get out, and now they're getting ready to rush, and because they're like horses prepared for battle, ready to move. Their heads were appeared to be crowns like gold. Now, this word for crown is a victor's crown, which means that the demons will be invincible. They will be unstoppable. Humans will do everything that they can to try to defeat them, and they will not be able to do that. There won't be any weapon that will do anything. They will have machine guns. They'll have, stuff from the sky, and nothing is going to work. Nothing is going to work. It says their faces were like the faces of men, which means that they will be intelligent, they will be rational, and they'll be able to make decisions and all that kind of stuff. They'll have sensibilities. They'll have hair like the hair of women, which means that there will be in ancient days, a woman's beauty was wrapped up in her hair. Nowadays, I guess it's different things depending on who you talk to, but for them, stereotypically, it had to do with their hair, and so these will be seductive, and for those who try to resist, who see them for what they are, but then there'll be others that they will lure into their own torment. So they have the teeth like the teeth of lions, which means that they'll be fierce, they'll be powerful. They'll be deadly, even though they won't kill again at this point. Because remember, they won't be able to kill for 5 months, as mentioned twice, in order to drive home the fact that God is in control. They will have parameters outside of which they will not be able to go because God is sovereign. But they'll be able to rip, tear apart their victims. It will be ghastly. It says they have breastplates of iron, which breastplates, of course, were meant to cover the vital organs of an army, and that simply points to the fact that they will have no vulnerabilities. There's nothing you can do to hurt them. Can't stop them. Nothing you can do. You can't put them off. None of that. And again, you refer to Joel chapter 2, verses 4 and 5. It kind of gives a lot of the same description. It says it talks about the sound of their wings. As something like an army that chariots moving forward. There'll be no way to escape their onslaught. They'll be coming. There'll be no place to hide. And then, of course, we have again the description of their scorpions that will be extremely painful. And we mentioned last week some scorpions' tails can inflict such harm and pain that there is what's the word, paralysis. There is extreme pain, which nobody can do anything about at this point. There's no cure for some of these things. There's no antibiotic for some of these things. And so they'll have the power to inflict great torment among people. So it is a strange description if you were to just take it at its literal value. Literally speaking, that's not what it's referring to. It's trying to send us a message of how horrid, and we overuse that word, and we overuse the word horrible, but the root word there is horror, and that's the message that we should be getting from this.
Devastation,
Yeah,
total devastation.
like locusts. I mean, that's why locusts is an apt description, because they'll come in and they'll wipe the place out. I mean, it's going to be awful. So
Visually in my mind, it's just so, like the bad, this, like you said, horror.
Horror.
Stuff horror movies
Mhm.
are made out of.
Yep.
It's just crazy.
mhm.
Creates a very vivid picture in my mind.
And that John has done what he wanted to do then. He wants us, I mean, it should be something that takes us back. Like,
Scary.
yeah, I mean, like, no way. How on earth? So
Is that during the tribulation?
this is the tribulation, and this will be in the fifth trumpet. So I know you hadn't been able to be here. So just very quickly, I don't have time to get too far into it, but very generally, the tribulation will begin with a series of judgments known as the seal judgments, the seals. And so it's like unfolding a scroll that has 7 seals. There's a seal, you unroll it a little bit, there's another seal, you break it, and all that. And with each one of those seals that are broken is an unfolding judgment. And when you get to the 7th seal, when it opens up, the 7th seal isn't one act of judgment. It opens up the trumpet judgments. And so the 7th seal are the 7 trumpets. And so then each one of those is going to unfold as a separate judgment until you get to the 7th trumpet. And when the 7th trumpet sounds, what we're going to find, we're not there yet, but what we're going to find, the 7th trumpet is the unleashing of the 7 bowl judgments. So the 7 bowl judgments are contained inside the last trumpet, and the 7 trumpet judgments are contained inside the last seal, if that makes sense. And so, and as we move along through these series of judgments, they're going to happen more rapidly and more intensely. So we're in the middle of all that. We're like right dead in the middle, numerically speaking. We've already passed the halfway point of the tribulation, but numerically speaking, we're right in the middle because we're in the 5th trumpet.
And it sounds to me like the first 6 are going to be a walk in the park compared
Yeah.
to the last one.
And see, that's the thing, is when you're going through them and you're reading them, you're like, your eyes are bugged out. You're like, oh, that's going to be terrible. And then, like you said, when you keep reading and you find out, oh, no, that's
nothing.
That's tribulation light. Now we get into the real stuff. But, anyway. Okay. So, thank God that there is therefore no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. We ain't going to be here for it. And I know not everybody believes in the rapture, but what's the old saying? I could agree with you, but then I'd be wrong too. Well, there you go. Okay, now God is choking me because I'm making fun of people. So anyway, all right.
That was interesting. I came in on, that got my attention.
Yes, no, I do not want to sound, what's the word? Arrogant in my knowledge of this, because there is still a lot to learn. Anyway, okay, what prayer request do you have? If you, very quickly, if you've got requests online, I can follow it on here. If you got requests, and you're watching at home, go ahead and start typing those in, because they've got to have a little time to get to me before we get out of here. What requests do you have in the room?
My mom, she's been having some serious
There you go. Uh-huh.
And so we've been like tooth and nails trying to get her to go see about it. But she finally did get an appointment for 28. Just pray that there won't be anything
Okay.
bad.
All right. Let's pray for Tina's mom. She's got some little swelling in her legs and finally got a doctor appointment.
Yes, sir.
We don't like doctors do much, do we? So, okay. All right. Also, of course, we want to pray for, Gene has written it in here. We want to pray for Carol Shoup. It's, unless God does something, and He can, somebody said we didn't make this very plain, and we didn't mean to at first because we didn't know, and we want to talk with Jimmy first, but it's the end. It's the end for her. So we want to pray for Jimmy as well. Jimmy's quite down about it all. Richard Powell, Alicia Powell, Letitia, tornadoes in Iowa, and they're all over the Midwest, from what I understand, the middle of, I guess, the plains. And yeah, that's all I can think of right now. Pray for Trey. Trey King had surgery on his knee, so he didn't tell me I couldn't share that. Anyway, just pray for his recovery. Anything else? All right, well, let's pray then. God, as we read through this and we read what John has to say, just the further we go, it's not getting any better. Seems like every stage is awful. Like terrible. And then it only gets worse. And when we figure that it can't get any worse, yet it does get worse. So in times like that, first of all, we just have to thank you that you have given us forgiveness and cleansing, and you have given us the promise that kind of judgment is not going to apply to us. And so we thank you for the deliverance that you bring, both now and in the life to come. Help us to be thankful for our salvation and all that you went through to get that. But also, may it not just be about us, but may we then concern ourselves over people who are going to face this. People who don't know you, might be nice people, might be good people, people that we love, and those kinds of things. And just give us a sense of urgency to see people escape this kind of doom. How could we wish this upon anybody and call ourselves one of your children? I don't know that that's possible. Either we're just that ignorant or we're not really saved. So give us a burden to see people come to know you so that they don't have to live through this and worse. So as we look ahead at Sunday, we want to celebrate the fact that you offer salvation and that you have saved, and just the chance to talk about how great you are. So just inhabit everything that takes place on Sunday in our services. And Lord, you know the requests that we have and the people who are hurting. There have been surgeries and death and near death and sickness and disease, and just it can be overwhelming sometimes just to think about it all and try to keep it all straight. But help us to remember that we're not you, and there's only so much that we can do, and we just have to have faith in you. And we pray that you'd enlarge our faith and see things from your perspective and from a heavenly perspective. But we certainly want to be used by you when that's appropriate, when you desire to use us. Help us to be willing and to be available. So God, thank you for our time together tonight. Thank you for your word that we can study, and help us to encourage one another and to learn from one another and to sharpen one another. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Mark just came on, so that means he's ready for y'all to get out of here. Yeah, that's right. Y'all better run. Mark, it's their fault. They made me stay. They were asking, hey, y'all ask Bible questions.
I think you were choking just a minute.